to the artichoke. We have 8 storytellers, including myself. We're going to come up here. They're going to tell a 10-minute short personal story. That's a story that happened to them. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've told this story before at a couple other venues, so if you've heard it before, I apologize. I need to tell this one tonight. If you were to ask me what kind of man my father is, I would tell you he's a mountain man. But he's not like an Appalachian hillbilly. My dad is Austrian. He's from the Alps, surprise. And when he's on a mountain, he is at peace, you know? And in his retirement, he discovered the nation of Nepal, where the mountains are impossibly high and majestic. And he started making annual trips there. And he would tell us all these stories about Nepal and like this, all the temples and this temple in this town called Dengboche that famously housed a Yeti skull, you know? And I was like, oh my God, man, this sounds magical. Like, and if anybody needs a screenplay idea, the temple also housed a Yeti paw in the 1930s, but it was stolen and smuggled across the border by the actor Jimmy Stewart. True. So on my dad's third trek to Nepal, he was trekking to Mount Everest base camp. And he didn't make it all the way because his heart started to bother him. He had a heart condition, AFib. He needed mitral valve repair surgery, so he had to cut the trip short and come back to the States. And when he came out of surgery, my dad was 72, but his hair had turned white, you know, and he looked like 106 to me, you know. And it was scary. It was like the first time he seemed mortal to me, you know? And but he was so gung-ho about getting better. He said as soon as he's done with physical therapy, he's going to go right back to Nepal and finish that trek, which was fucking insane, you know? So I said, you know, if you do that, then I'm going to go with you. So we fly to Nepal and we land at Lukla Airport, which is terrifying, and we start our trek. And I noticed, like within a couple hours, I realized that we're in trouble. My dad, he's starting to get winded at the slightest incline. This is a 12-day trek, and it's very important. Our guide told us that we need to get to the next lodge before the sun comes down because the trails are very dangerous at night. There's snow, there's bandits, believe it or not. And so, you know, I get nervous right off the bat. You know, day 2, we have trouble getting to our next destination. But my dad is like so oblivious to his condition. Like he'll just stop in the trail and take his pulse, and he'd take a pull off of his inhaler. I forgot to mention he's also a severe asthmatic, but. You know, and I would just like be staring at him and sort of telepathically screaming at him, like, you know, we gotta go, But he wouldn't have any of it. He would just listen to the thunderclap of this avalanche roll through the valley, you know? And by day 3, my dad couldn't climb a flight of stairs. And my guide takes me on this little side expedition to that temple in Dengboche that famously housed the Yeti skull. And I was excited to do this. My dad was going to stay back at the lodge and drink some tea, but I needed to be away from my father because I needed to tell him, I needed to figure out the most gentle way to break his heart, you know, because there was no way we were going to make it another 9 days, you know. So my guide takes me, you know, a 2-hour trek to this temple, and I paid this Buddhist monk, I don't know, $10 to take me into the temple and into this back room, and where there's this box, and he takes this, you know, velvet blanket off this box, where there's this glass case where the Yeti skull is contained, and he opens the box, and right there, it's the world's hairiest coconut. That's what it was. And so we trek back to the lodge, and I tell my dad about it, and we had this big laugh about it, and he's like, well, you didn't think the Yeti was real. And I was like, oh, no, of course not. And, but like, we had this great bonding moment, and I think, I'll just give him one more day. But at the end of the next day, the sun has come down, and the snow is covering the trail, and my guide is looking at me like, dude, you need to talk to him. So we make it to the next lodge, and we are sitting in our small room. I'm on my twin bed, and he's sitting on his bed, and I have a book open in front of me, and I'm just staring through the pages, and I'm not reading anything, because in my head, I'm just screaming. I'm like, what are we doing here? Why can't you understand? You can't do this anymore. But I don't have to say anything, because my dad sits on the edge of the bed, and he says, hey, Drew, we need to talk. And he says, after my surgery, I thought that I would be okay to do this, but it turns out I'm not. And I'm thinking, thank you, holy shit, oh my God, thank you. He's like, I think we need to turn back and go back down the trail. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you, God, thank you, God. And then he looks at me with the saddest look on his face I've ever seen. And he says, this is my last trip to Nepal. And I said, what the fuck are you talking about? We're not turning back. I'm like, we came all this way. What are you talking about? We're not going back. And I was like, we're going to get a horse. We're going to put you on a horse. He says, I don't want to get on a horse. I said, we're getting you on a horse. And my guide, he gets on a sat phone, and he calls this number. And in the middle of the night, this man crosses through the Himalayas leading a horse for my father. And I hadn't seen a horse in Nepal. And in the morning, we put him on that horse, and for the next 7 days, my father had the best view of anyone on that trail. And I got to walk next to him with my pack and listen to him tell me stories about being a little boy in the Alps. And at one point, the horse threw him. And my dad landed on his back, and the horse dragged him 8 feet. And my heart stopped. And my dad just gets up and he goes, wow, that was an adventure. And by the time we made it to Mount Everest base camp, we both had altitude sickness. And I had lost 17 pounds. But my father and I, we slept at the foot of the giant. And in the morning, we had this moment. Where we watched this. We watched this yellow sunrise just shimmer off the peak, And I'll never forget it. And his lungs were so bad that we were going to have to take a helicopter back. He was going to have to spend 3 nights in a hospital in Kathmandu. But as we are flying through the Himalayas in the helicopter, I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat with headphones on, and the helicopter, it's just loud. It's so loud. We can't say a word to each other, but I turn around and I see my dad, and he's just leaning his face against the window, and he's watching the Himalayas just soar by us, and he's just smiling, because he's a mountain man. Thank you.